What's going on, guys? This is Right Minds, Right Times podcast, episode 3. I'm your host, Tyler Smith, and I have a guest with me today, Justin. How you doing?
Good, man. It's been a long time since we've caught up, so uh, I love it, man. This is great.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just what's it been? Last time, when was Vegas? Vegas was like a couple of years ago or
Man,
something now.
Vegas was a couple years ago. What a hell of a time though that was, man. I think that was when you got the Trump flag ripped out of your hands.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, you remember that? Actually, yeah,
yeah,
that was a
yeah,
great story.
yeah.
That was
That was a
ballsy of
good
me.
video. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not
That
gonna
that
lie.
was very interesting.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, there was this one video where I took a Joe Biden sucks flag and I took it.
Yeah,
It's called Fremont Street, right? And it's basically a place where there's like a ton of people, hundreds of people go. Like everyone that goes to Las Vegas, that's where they go. It's got all the casinos and stuff. And I just held a Joe Biden sucks flag in the middle of it all, in a very, very blue state. And then all of a sudden, some guy comes over and just rips it right out of my hand. And then then he just kind of walks away. I pick it up from the ground. I didn't want to fight or anything. But then he walks away. He does like a big loop, and then he takes it again and rips it and starts walking away. And I'm like kind of following him. Then these guys come over and they start fighting him for the flag. And I'm like, bro, it's just a flag, okay? Don't go to
yeah.
jail for this stuff, all right? And then there's cops that were just watching this go down. They didn't even like do anything about it. I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
what's going on here? But
It
that was
didn't
funny.
take very long at all. You know what I mean? Like I think you had that out for a few minutes, and then next thing you know, some guy's trying to rip it out of your hands. But that's the tolerant left for you, though.
And very, very tolerant, apparently. Just didn't bring up any good points. Everyone was coming around me or coming, to me asking like, "Oh, what happened? What were you holding up? What was the sign like?" And then I told them it was a Joe Biden sucks flag, and some of them were like, "Yeah, man, yeah, that was awesome." But then others were like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, well,
really get about
kind of
that.
justified, but."
Right,
No one
right.
no one was gonna come up to me and ask me like, "Oh, why are you holding up that flag? Oh, why do you think Joe Biden sucks?" This and that, because they know he sucks.
Right.
Like, I wasn't even holding up a Trump, like, flag. It was just a Joe Biden sucks flag. It's
Well,
so
they immediately correlate that with MAGA and the Trump supporters, right? I mean, think about how crazy it is right now that in our society, you fly an American flag and you are a patriot, right? You love the country. You are immediately associated with that ultra right wing MAGA, cult, as they like to say it. I mean, that's how sick that it's become right now.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen so many videos now where I saw this one girl say that she studied abroad, in other countries, and she came back to America. And one thing she didn't like about America is how patriotic people are. Like, oh, there's too many American flags everywhere. And I'm like, well, you know what? You don't have to stay here, sweetheart. Okay, you can
Right,
go wherever you were,
right.
learning, whatever country you were in. Go to them that don't have a ton of flags that aren't not patriotic. That's why they're not number one. Okay,
Well, and that's
but
why you've never experienced a 1776 either, right? I mean,
exactly. Exactly.
and I think a lot of it has to do with the age. And look, you're quite a bit younger than I am too, and you came out all right. So how you did and some of these other ones didn't baffles me. But I mean, they're not teaching about a lot of that stuff, right? I mean, they're definitely not teaching a lot about 9/11, and they're not. I remember being in school watching Schindler's List. I
Yeah.
mean, like that was wild, man. But I mean, it just it taught you a lot, right? But they don't teach about that anymore.
Yeah, I can't wait when I have kids, and cuz I'm going to be so active in the schools, that my kids go to if I don't homeschool them. And I just want to know, like, what are they teaching in schools nowadays? Are they actually showing like
Right,
Schindler's List? Like that's such a great movie, and really shows, cuz you got to show the hard times in history. If you don't
right.
show them, I believe if you don't show these, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it, right? What's that
Yep,
saying? Exactly. So
yep.
that's the problem. We're not teaching these kids, like with the founding fathers. I just saw that guy. What was his name? That little short guy that basically went on. I'm sure it was CNN, and he was basically saying that I can't believe we're going to be teaching our kids about the founding fathers that tried to overthrow the government. And I'm over here sitting like, thinking that's how the United States was founded. Okay.
Right.
They went against a tyrannical government. They overthrew a tyrannical government. Okay. And he was saying that they didn't overthrow it. I'm like, bro, if they didn't overthrow the tyrannical government, America wouldn't be here today. So
We wouldn't be what we are, right? So I
yeah,
mean, it's a very healthy part of what the country had to go through to get to where they were. I mean, to say to get to where we are right now, I mean, we were nowhere near this point just a few years ago. I mean, look at the last couple of years, man. I mean, it has just gone completely downhill, and that's why I even decided to start doing anything with TikTok about the political side of it, because I was like, I mean, this is getting crazy, right?
yeah,
I mean, before when I even started on TikTok, right, it was all about the positivity, positive content, relationship advice. I did a lot of stuff on relationship advice, just drawing on my past experience, and then it quickly flipped when you're going through all the election stuff, and all of everything that Trump was going through, and I felt like people needed to hear a different side of it, because I've never believed in the media, right? I've always just kind of known that, like, there's no way they're telling you the truth here. They're all saying the exact same thing, and so let's go out and try to voice a lot of what I think and what I see is happening from the research. And so that took off like crazy, right? And then it wasn't too long after that where all the censoring happened, and
yeah.
man, ever since then, it's brutal. And you know how it is. I mean, you try to post certain videos and they'll come down immediately. I mean, it's just unreal.
So you were more, I completely agree. You were more positive. Like what were your, cause
Yeah.
you got pretty big
So
on TikTok. So what was like
yes.
your beginning, what you posted at the
So
beginning, and then what
TikTok.
made you become conservative?
Yeah, I mean, it was around right before 2020. It was, I think, right before the pandemic or during the pandemic type of deal. And that's when TikTok, you didn't see a lot of political stuff on there. TikTok hadn't gotten that. I mean, it was still big, right? Don't get me wrong. But it was different than what it is now. It's not even remotely the same compared to what it was 3 years ago. And I honestly got started because my daughter's now 17, but at the time she was 14 and wanted to be on TikTok. And I'd always heard a lot of negative things and said, hey,
Mm,
you know what? I want to get on there, just kind of explore it, see what it's about. And then I said, look, if I, have 1,000 followers on this thing, I'll let you, get an account. And it was within like the first 2 days, I got 1,000 followers, and I'm like, oh, that's not great. I mean, I'm equating the followers to, I had a Twitter account which had maybe like 120 followers, right? So then all of a sudden, and my Instagram had like 200 followers. So that's why I said, 1,000 followers, you can have it. Quickly got that, and then I continued doing more videos. Progressively got more into that relationships, right? It was about divorces, it was about being a single dad type of deal. And then I hit 10,000, and I was like, man, okay, that's pretty cool, right? And so I finally told her, I was like, all right, 100,000. If I hit 100,000, you
yeah,
can
you went from
finally get it.
1,000.
You can
Yeah.
finally get it. And then I did. And then by the time I hit 100,000, which it didn't take too long to hit 100,000 on there. She wasn't really into it. She started to get older, and she's like, I'm already watching it anyways. And but then I switched. I was doing all of the relationship stuff, and really trying to relate to more guys than females. Like, it wasn't to try to gain more of a female view on it. It was more for guys, right? And all the stuff with the election started happening there in 2020. I switched to more political, started doing more research on it, and realized what we're seeing is not reality. Like, I just don't believe it. And then within, I would say, a week, I had 250,000 followers. I mean, it blew up, and I'm like, okay, that's the niche right there, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is it. That's what people want to see. And so I stuck around with that for a while. And then I slowly moved away from it. It's a wild story, man. My last job that I had, my employer knew that I was doing videos and knew that I got pretty big, but they hated the political stuff, right? So, I mean, I'd have, HR at the time, have conversations with me about it. And it was like, this still, and see, and I wasn't willing to back down off of it because I'm like, this is just an opinion, right? Like, we still have the First Amendment. This has nothing to do with my
Mhm.
job. This has nothing to do with anything like that. And then eventually, miraculously, right before Christmas, it was like the 23rd, I ended up, they downsized, right? So lost my job. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. They downsize a week to 2 weeks later. All of a sudden, there's somebody else in that position. I'm like,
Wow.
okay, I see where this is going, right? And then I found the current career job that I'm at right now. Love it. Decided to kind of back off away from the content a little bit, not because my beliefs changed or anything like that, but more I just really wanted to focus on my career at that point. And I mean, you know how it is too. I mean, to do a quality video, I mean, like it takes work. It's funny because you see some of these TikToks where they're so dumb and then they end up getting 5 million views, right? But
Yeah.
constantly thinking about content as well. Now, the good thing about politics is that it writes itself, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the good thing about it. But the constant research, the constant thinking. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I'd lay in bed and my mind is racing of stuff like, okay, this is what I got to do. Okay, wait, I got to do this. Did I post enough today? And it was like a mental health thing at that point. I was like, I have to step away for a while. And so, I've posted a few videos, here and there, but I've had so many warnings now that I'm like, I don't want to lose this account either. So it's like,
Yeah.
all right, whatever. So
Yeah, I'm the same way actually. It's just right now I've gotten so many warnings I don't post on TikTok. I haven't posted on TikTok in like a month or two, because it's just Instagram's less censored as of right now. It's weird because I've
yeah,
deleted two posts on Instagram and like the day after or something, each time I deleted a post, which I only kept it up for like maybe an hour or something. I would delete it the next day. I said it removed it. I'm like, it's already removed. I'm like, what are you talking
yeah,
about? It's like the weirdest thing. I'm like, it's saying, oh, this was removed for violating community guidelines. And I'm like, I already deleted it. I'm like, what are you removing a post that's not even there? So that was odd, and that's never happened. I've never got a video taken down before on Instagram. So when I that's only been happening recently. So I don't know, maybe Instagram's picking back up on the censorship, who knows, but all I know is TikTok is just so heavily censored, and
yeah,
I know it's biased. I know it's biased, or at least it's biased towards my account, because I'll see these big accounts that are on the left-leaning side, right? They will post things where they are absolutely ripping someone a new one, where they are insulting them, using slurs, everything. But
yeah.
when I do that, they'll take the video down in 2 minutes, right? So it's so obvious to me now that there's a clear bias. I used to be like, "Oh, maybe it's even on both sides." It's not. It's really not. That conservative
Yeah,
gets censored more.
it's definitely biased, and it's already come out, right? Those two creators that were paid by the Democrat Party to continue to post content. You know,
Harry and Chris, yeah.
Harry, yeah, yeah, and you don't hear about any of that from the conservative side, which I find to be very interesting. But Instagram's run by Facebook and Meta or whatever they're called now, and Zuckerberg, and it just so happens that he's, I think, being sued. What they say, I don't know how many states now, but there's multiple states that are suing Facebook for providing certain content to younger kids and things like that. So that's heating up and that's getting interesting. But with everything that's coming out, heading into an election year, you can already see just how bad it's getting, right? And anybody that's awake, that's paying attention, knows that it's going to get worse. I fully believe that there will be some type of communication, whether you want to call it blackout or something, right? And I guess what I mean by that is that right now, your social media, there's a lot more of these, MAGA Trump supporters, people that are waking up than I think what people realize. And the last thing they can do is get the news out there, right? Think about how quick, if you look at Israel and Hamas and everything that happened with that, they came out and they said the hospital's been hit, right? 500 people died. The second thing that came out a day later, maybe not even a day later, was 50, I think it was like 50 people died in this hospital attack. Third thing came out was, well, it was the parking lot that was hit, right? And it was like 100 people were injured or something. The truth finally came out. And that's due to social media. I mean, you're not going to get that from your regular Fox News, CNN, and things like that. It's going to be from social media, and that's why I think they're going to have to stop it uh, as we get closer to the election. I mean,
Yeah.
this is going to be a big year for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people now that's a great point too. A lot of people are getting their news from, either Twitter or social media. They're not going to Fox, they're not going to CNN, ABC, all these. They don't believe in the news anymore. They don't believe in these news channels because, like, if you saw when Elon or Tucker Carlson, great example, right? He does all these interviews now on X, and I think the Trump interview is what, almost at 300 million.
300 million or something like
Like,
that. Yeah,
that's
it's insane.
insane. That is absolutely insane to see those numbers. So if that doesn't show that people would rather use a social media platform than like a news network, and I don't know what does, because that just proves that people are just using their social media more, right?
Yeah,
So, and that's what I use. I go on social media, I go on X, I go on Twitter. Obviously, I make sure to fact check everything. I don't take something that I see that is from like an account that only has a couple hundred followers, even a couple 100,000 followers. I make sure to fact check it, make sure it's true, try to see, read the article, obviously do my diligence. So, but I think that's true. I think people are not watching TV as much as they used to because they just know that the media lies a lot. So,
yeah. Well, and what we've learned too is that you have to give it the 24-hour rule. I mean, again, I go back to the bombing of the hospital that people talked about, and you gave it 24 hours. The complete story changed after that. They end up finding out that the hospital was not bombed, right? But so many people are quick to jump on that immediately, right? And it spreads like wildfire. And so that's one thing that I've really tried to do is not play too much into that. Just give it some time because I've realized that uh, there's always there's whatever the media says, it's not the truth, and we'll end up finding out within the next couple days. In some months, it's taken 6 months. Look at all the Russia stuff that was thrown at Trump's way, right?
mm,
Everybody was saying for the longest time, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true, right? And you were called a conspiracy theorist and all this stuff. And then guess what? It wasn't true.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, so it's like, all right, we'll just wait a little bit. Now, what's interesting is everything that Trump's going through right now with all of his legal battles, right? Like I mean, trying to navigate through that and really figure that out. Honestly, for me, I kind of still go back to the whole RussiaGate stuff, right? And how many times they tried to impeach him and all this stuff, and nothing stuck. They couldn't get anything to stick, right? Why now? Why would I think right now that they're going to be able to get something to stick? It looks damning, for sure. It
yeah.
really does. Um, but I still have to believe that there's a bigger play here somewhere, right? What if he does go to jail? Is that going to ignite his base more than anything? Look at what his mugshot did.
1776.
Yeah, right, right. Look at what his mugshot did. I mean, it just propelled him in the polls even that much more. This dude goes to jail. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you're looking at complete anarchy, with some of his devout followers, if you will. So, who knows? I find it interesting the whole Jenna Ellis thing that happened. Was it
Yeah,
yesterday? I think was that when it was, or today
I think
even
it was.
maybe
Yeah, I think it was yesterday. I
today?
think it was
Oh,
yesterday.
yesterday. She ends up pleading guilty, And then she ends up saying, if I
Switching.
knew
Totally.
then what I know now, I wouldn't know. And it's like, get out of here. Um, and how about you go ahead and pay back? I think it's like the 300,000 that people donated to you as well. So go ahead and do that. But I don't know. Like I said, man, it is this next year will probably be something that uh, we'll remember forever. With maybe war, Trump has been saying World War III for how long now? And what has he said? A major event or something major, right? What has he said that hasn't come true at this point? If you remember, he talked about the borders and it just being so open, we're going to have trouble with it. This was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I mean, look at it now. He was absolutely correct with that. If you look at the fact that they could at any time, anybody in their right mind, if this was anybody else, would have already impeached, gotten rid of, used the 25th Amendment on Biden, right? And he
Hmm.
said, hey, the 25th Amendment is probably going to come back to bite him, you know. So I mean, he's been pretty accurate the entire time. So
I know.
I don't have any reason to not believe him, but uh, just looking at history and how this is lining up, I mean, if Russia and China get involved in this, and Iran gets involved in it, this is going to be insane, you know.
Yeah.
And this isn't going to be fought like World War II. This isn't going to be fought in somebody else's land. This is going to be fought right here in our land.
Yeah. Do you think that it's going to be, because a lot of people say that, it's going to be more like missiles. It's not going to be really boots on the ground type stuff, but I feel like we always need boots on the ground, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look at so if you look at even today, right? They're still holding off on Iran or Israel's holding off on the ground invasion right now, but they're talking about sending, what is it, like 20,000 troops, American troops over there to protect even the American troops that are there and all of this stuff, right? I think what I could foresee happening is we're focusing all of the energy right on that situation, right? It's a perfect time to go and take Taiwan if you're China, right? It's a perfect time to
Right.
come into America right now. We have no idea who's been coming in. None, right? So
Yeah.
it's a perfect time for these underground cells, to pop up and do some significant damage, you know. I mean, obviously, I hope that that never happens. But if you think through it logically, it could definitely happen. We have more undocumented people right now in the United States than what we have ever had, and we have no idea who's here. You
Yeah,
know.
no, we have a complete open border right now. Because
Yeah.
if you look at, obviously, there's security there, whatever they do. Like you see videos where they're opening up, they're taking down the fence. Like, why would you do that? It doesn't make any
Right.
sense. So,
Right.
but if you look, people don't understand. Like America takes in between 800,000 to a million legal immigrants per year. Okay, that's an insane amount. That's basically more
Yep.
than every other country combined. Okay, so and the problem is we can't just keep taking in like that's legal. We're already taking a ton of legal immigrants, but now we're taking in, like, people don't understand, there's hundreds of thousands of illegal encounters per month at the border. Okay, hundreds of thousands. Under the Biden administration, it's averaged about 200,000, okay, per month. That's just the ones
Yep.
they've encountered, not the ones getting through and coming in. And I'm not saying that it's just because I know people are gonna take it out of context and be like, "Oh, you're saying that people that hop over the border are bad people." I'm not saying they're bad people, but there could be some, like, sleeper, what do you call them? Sleeper cells, right?
Yeah. The
And like, who
sleeper
knows
cell.
what they're coming into the country for? There's been a ton of people on the watch list that have hopped over the border, on the terrorist watch list that they caught. Like, we don't know who's coming over the border, but if we do things legally, we know who's coming into our country. We
Right.
know the people that are coming in, but if we do it illegally, we just have open borders. We have no idea. We have no
That's
idea.
the thing that I don't understand, and why so many people fight against that, right? I mean, there's a way of doing it, right? And I'm not somebody that says, oh, if you weren't born here, you can't be here. No, I mean, just do it legally. I mean, I've got friends that have done that, right? And I've talked to them
Yeah.
about their journey, and it does take a while to do it. but they are the ones now that are ultimately pissed off too, because they're like, look, I did all this legally, right? I spent how much time doing A, B, and C to get this done. And here is, the next person over here that just walked right in and, given a cell phone and here you go. But if you do it legally, to your point, you do know who's here, right? You've got a better understanding. You have control of that. Same people that have no problem having armed guards by their side or live in a gated community, and the gated community is probably more than, I mean, more people live in a gated community than ones that have armed guards, right? So I mean, you can equate that to that. Why live in a gated community? Why do you have a gated community, right? I
Yeah.
mean, same concept there, you
Well,
know.
the best example, my favorite example is Martha's Vineyard, right? When all of a
Mhm.
sudden, I forget which governor it was. I think it was either Abbott or DeSantis. They started busing. I think it was Abbott. They bust a ton of legal immigrants over to Martha's Vineyard. Like, oh,
Yeah,
you're
Abbott.
okay. You guys, you Democrats over there are okay with all these illegals coming into Texas and ruining the economy over here. Well, you know what? I'm gonna take some of them, put them over at Martha's Vineyard because you're so happy for illegal immigration. You're for open borders and all this stuff. So I'm gonna show you what your voting has done. So then
Yeah,
he busts them over, and then everyone from Martha's Vineyard is like, "Oh my God, we're getting invaded! Oh my God, what's going on? We got to bust them back. We got to take them out." And they were so happy when they left. And I'm like, the hypocrisy is insane. It's like,
yeah.
oh, it's okay if they stay in Texas or somewhere or in Florida or in a red state, but yeah, like the sanctuary cities, like New York,
New
the
York,
the
yeah.
governor of New York.
Look at New York. Adams right now is having a shit fit, and will not want, doesn't want any more bust there. I mean, they've already said, all the troubles that they're having there in New York. But they in the very beginning were like, fine, let them come here. They didn't think that they would actually make it all the way there because how close are
Mm.
they to the border, right? And so then when they called their bluff and they sent them all there, all of a sudden we have a change of tune.
Yeah, Chicago's pretty bad too. If you look at the police stations in Chicago, it's filled with illegal immigrants. There's been so many weird videos of these hotels. Like I wonder how many tax dollars are going towards keeping them housed in all these
Yeah.
hotels and whatnot. Like if I lived in a blue state and this is what was happening, if I was paying taxes for people to live in
Mhm.
hotels, I'd be pretty upset. And I can sympathize with illegal immigrants. If I was from Mexico or somewhere, where maybe like a country in Asia, and I somehow made it to the border and I wanted a better life for my family, and I knew that Joe Biden was having an open border, I'd probably jump the border. I'm not going to lie and live in
Of
this
course.
amazing country. But obviously, we can't just do it that way. That's not a safe way. That's not a productive way. That's not it's just everything shows that illegal immigrants, all these studies point to that illegal immigration is not good for the country, and this should be
Yep.
an issue that we can all agree on. But for some reason, and even Biden's kind of taking it back a little bit too, like he's
Yep.
well, actually he took down Title 42, right, where Trump may put that in, so during COVID, basically
Right.
canceled
Well,
immigration.
he also restarted some pieces of the wall too, which have really gotten under the skin of some of the Democrats because they're pissed about it. But I find that to be pretty interesting. Now, how much of it is he really going to do? Probably not a
Well, he
lot. But
said he had to. Like, apparently, like, there's
right,
contracts in place that he couldn't, undo or something where he was forced to do this. He was forced to do
sure,
it. I'm like,
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I doubt it.
But all the other corrupt things that this guy has done, I mean, you can't get out of a contract somehow. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah, so that's why I just think he's so full of it. As we see, I think there's some charges I just saw today about Hunter Biden and them finding the FBI finding some interesting stuff on them, but I don't believe the three-letter agencies. So,
So
but
yeah, they said what was interesting about that was they said that they had 40, uh, what was it, 40 agents or 40, I don't know, it's people that were working with them in the administration and inside the Bidens that were feeding them information and things like that. But again, all of a sudden, I'm going to trust the FBI after all of this stuff, right?
I
I
know.
mean, like, come on, man. But I mean, what do you think is going to? I mean, we fast forward. to election time. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, what are
Uh,
your thoughts?
it's tough to say what's going to happen. I mean, I hate to, because usually people have some interesting theories and then they never
Yeah,
come to be true. It's always something
yeah.
totally different, right? It's like something no one would ever assume. But I think that I think that Trump's going to get back in office. I'm pretty confident about that. I think that people are kind of fed up. They definitely aren't going to vote for Biden again, for sure, with everything going on. I think it's pretty clear now that if you look at under the Trump administration versus Biden, it's pretty crystal clear. Look at all the war that's going on. You got Ukraine, you got Israel versus Palestine now. You got like I can't believe how much conflict is under Biden and what Biden has done. Like we are not respected anymore. Russia doesn't respect us. North Korea
Nobody
doesn't
does.
respect us. No one does. Trump, the reason why there was no, like, even Kim Jong Un's talking about to he just said to North Korea that, hey, there could be a World War III going on very soon because America has a very, very weak leader right now. So I think that's a huge problem. So see all these, even the crazy ones, we see that are starting to realize that, hey, something's going on in America. They got to fix this.
Right.
So hopefully people, I do believe that global mass psychosis is kind of a real thing. What's his name? Robert Malone, is
Yeah.
that his name? The guy that created the mRNA vaccine.
Yep.
He kind of talked about that on the Joe Rogan
Yep.
podcast, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And it kind of goes back to the World War II in Germany. How Hitler basically got everyone into this trance or whatnot to believe the certain thing, because Germany was a very intelligent community back then, or
Yeah.
society. So the fact he got all these people to believe in this certain thing, or a good amount of them, is very interesting. So I think that's what's going on today. So hopefully we can get them out of that trance, like wake up, and they'll start seeing the truth. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I think that Trump's going to win it. I don't think that, unless, because who do the Democrats really have? I forget who
Well,
pointed that
that's
out.
that's interesting, right? Because look at what came out today, where you've got Gavin Newsom heading over to China and meeting with Xi Jinping, right?
Yeah.
So he was meeting with him today, saying, I would like to be president and all this. I don't think that it is going to be Trump versus Biden. I think that they're going to have to pull Biden at some point. Um, in is that Gavin Newsom? Probably, right? He looks like he would be that next fit, and that's just enough fresh air for some of these people that have done zero research, that have zero intelligence, to go, okay, well, I'll do it because it's not Trump, right? I mean, look at how
Yeah.
well California is doing right now,
Oh, they're doing
right? I
so
mean,
great. Oh, so
right,
great.
right. It's the state where the most amount of people have moved out of so far. He's doing so great that they don't even want to stay. You know,
Yeah, they lost
um,
seats on in the House of Representatives. Their
right.
population is going down. Yeah.
Right. So could it be him and there's a revitalized Democrat Party there a little bit? Maybe, right? I still think that they're going to have to do something, because they're not going to have COVID, during the voting like what they had the last time, with all
Hmm.
the mail-in votes and things like that. They're not going to have that, or so far. They've tried it, just even what, month, 2 months ago, COVID's coming back, and everybody was like, whatever, and
Yeah.
nothing came of it. So
The
and
UFOs.
look, and if you think about this logically too, they know, these other leaders know, we have to strike now. We
Yeah.
have to do it now. And because if Trump gets back in office, we're all screwed. I mean, he's going to there's going to be peace. I mean, people are not going to be fighting. So if we want this war, we want to do this, we need to do this right now. So that's why, again, I think, what do I think is going to happen? I don't know. I mean, to your point, I mean, so many people have thrown out these ideas. Nothing's come true, with these big ideas or whatever. It is interesting to hypothesize about it, but I think that we'll see some major event probably around May, June, somewhere in there, just a few months right before the election. So
Yeah, there's still a lot of time. I mean,
yeah,
even recently, like that whole thing I would never predicted is Trump becoming the Speaker of the House. Like people threw that out. I didn't think it was going to happen. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, no, my man wants to become
yeah,
president once again. He understands like he needs to be there in the Oval Office. But there's been certain things that I found interesting, but I just knew weren't going to happen. Like people saying the dollar was going to crash. Like that. I just don't think will ever happen. I don't think that's realistic. This is I understand Democrats are bad, but I don't think they're that bad. Okay, so there's certain things like that, and maybe a couple other that I'll think of later on. But this world-ending stuff, I just like apparently China and Russia, they're creating a new currency. They're getting away from the
yeah.
U.S. dollar, stuff like that. Where that might be somewhat true. That could definitely have some bad repercussions on our end, but I don't think that's gonna affect us too much. I mean, there's already so much. I think what we should be worrying about right now is inflation and the prices of
Yeah.
everything because the prices are skyrocketing. They're clearly lying about inflation because one
Yeah.
thing for sure is not that natural like 7% increase every year or whatever. I don't even think that's the what is it? Is it 7% or is it like only like 3% or something for like how much is
No, the
inflation go
seven,
per year?
the seven definitely sounds right. I mean, I think the point really is that it's not slowing up anytime soon.
No.
You know what I mean? Like it's going in the wrong direction, and it's been heading in the wrong direction the last 3 years, and it's not getting any better. And if we go into war, I think it's going to get much worse as well. And it's going to open up probably more eyes. I mean, look, if we go into World War III, to think about having a draft right now with this generation is insane. Yeah, I mean, you know what
That
I mean? Like
makes
that's wild to even think about. But
I've seen so many videos on that of all these, pretty feminine looking dudes are like, I'm not gonna, get drafted. I'm gonna run away or this and that. And then now
where are
you
you
even
gonna
have
go?
this guy, there was this video of this guy, he's like, I'm gonna go in the woods. I know this place. I don't know what he was talking about, but he's like, I know this place. I'm gonna live there for 5 months and do this and that, whatever, because you don't want to give me a gun. I'm like, bro, if I was president, I put you on the front line. Okay.
Yeah,
You are going on the front line. So like stuff
yep,
like that. Like those people I upset me so much because it's like, how could you not fight for your country? Like that should be such an honor. Back in the day, people were lying about their age so they could get
yep.
go to war. Right now, we have people that are just doing whatever they can, running away so they don't have to. It's pretty
Right.
sad what we've
It's
come
the
to.
same ones. It's the same ones that called Trump a draft dodger, right? That was a whole big thing. Well, he dodged the draft. He didn't want to go into the military. They're the same ones that are going to do or attempt to do the exact same thing. It's just to me it seems so easy when you start looking at the Congress right now. Which, hey, look, we got a Speaker of the House today. I find it odd that nobody knew who this person was, and then on the first vote, he gets enough. Like,
Well,
okay, I mean,
Trump, all right, he was on Trump's team. He was apparently part of some legal battles with Trump,
yeah,
Mike Johnson, and Trump backed him up. So after Trump backed him up, he kind of got a lot of support after that. So I think
yeah.
that's
So
what happened.
I think that is going to be very interesting too, right? I mean, you've got someone who the Democrats are now calling that MAGA Speaker of the House, and so it
Election
could be
denier, you
election
know.
denier, right? It could be very interesting and to see what they get done. But the whole government shutdown thing. First off, I completely believe in term limits. Why would you not want to have term limits? Again, this is something that I would think that both sides could agree on. Get fresh thoughts in there. You shouldn't be able to be a career politician. How you come in being a bartender and now you're worth millions of dollars, right? AOC. Like how is that possible? And so then and they are bought and paid, right? I mean, I think it was Vivek that ended up saying that on that first debate, but they're making millions of dollars. So of course they're not going to want to do anything, to get term limits and things like that. But, with the government shutdown as well, why do they continue to get paid? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, all of that should be taken. You're a government employee. All of that should be taken away as well. And honestly, if you fight for war, I mean, this is extreme, but it's like, hey, your kids that are of the age to be drafted, let's draft them first, because I guarantee if you voted for it and you're for it, then let's put your kids first, and let's see if you think the same. Because
exactly.
I guarantee you won't.
Yeah, that's great point right there. But you mentioned AOC though, how they kind of get elected into these, offices. Either they join Congress and now they become millionaires when they leave. So I kind of looked up. I did a little research. It's funny that you bring this up on AOC, and I find it hard to believe that I forget the exact numbers, but there was a number going around, probably like 10 million or something, or 14 million. I forget exactly, but that she was worth 14 million around. Then all of a sudden this was disproven, that AOC
I
on
read
her
the same
taxes.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I'm thinking apparently she's like worth $40,000 or something, or she's actually a
Yeah.
student debt. Then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you're telling me that this capitalist, because she is a capitalist, okay? There's no way this girl, she says she's a socialist, but she's not, okay? She
She had
wears
a
a
hoodie.
tax the rich.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
had a hoodie. What was it? Yeah, back the rich, and she was selling it for
I
a
know.
decent amount of money. Like,
She's
come
like
on.
genius with it. She wears a tax the rich dress, that's going to clearly create a ton of publicity, and then sells tax the rich merch after. If
Yeah,
that is not basic capitalism like 101, I don't know what
right.
is. Do a publicity stunt and then capitalize on it. So it's very hard to believe. So I think what she's doing is she probably has something in like her mother's name, that's getting all the money. Who knows what she's doing? Clearly there's a little loophole involved, but there's no way she's not worth a couple million. Okay.
Yeah,
That is
I
all
read the
BS.
same thing, and whether it was 40,000 or 400,000, right? But I was in somebody's live and they were debating that, and so that's what made me start looking into it. And I found the same thing that you did, where there's some reports that are saying she's worth X amount of millions of dollars, right? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I think it was Forbes or some other publisher came out and was like, no, she's only worth, what was it, 40,000, 400,000, something like
Whatever it
that.
is.
I mean, it's a significant difference, right? Um, and again, I mean, I'm sorry. Well, then you're doing something in Congress. Everybody else is making millions. I mean, they are. And if she's still only making that 40 to 400,000, whatever it is, right in there, yeah, she's filtering that money somewhere else. Like, gotta be.
Somewhere.
Like, come on. Like, no way I would believe that.
Yeah, once I started reading this and I started looking into it, I'm like, nah, nah. This is clearly they found something that I don't know, AOC, because she's got to keep up that image. I don't think she's a
Oh
complete
yeah,
dummy, or maybe she's not on the inside yet. She's because they think she's crazy or too young or something. So she's not
yeah.
part of that inside group yet, the cool group, right? And on the Democrats, because if you look at like Liz Cheney, she's worth like 60 million or something. Like there's
Yeah.
all these Republicans and stuff. I guess her family's rich or something, but there's all these politicians that are worth millions and millions. I'm like, where are you getting it from?
Book
Pelosi, the
deals.
best trader we've ever seen in history.
She's
We got
one
a
is
Warren
amazing.
Buffett.
Yeah, I mean, she's literally, when it comes to trading, she's the smartest person in the world, man. I mean, look at some of the deals that she's had. It's
I
been
know.
incredible, you
Yeah.
know.
She's
Um,
worth what, 100 and something million, like it's crazy to me. And if you look at her, do you think she knows anything about stocks?
yeah, no, not at
No,
all.
no, she has no
Absolutely,
idea.
absolutely not, right?
Yeah.
What I do find interesting is that that whole left side of AOC, Ilhan Omar, and
Oh yeah.
there's, I mean, even Hakeem Jeffries, and the list goes on and on. There's that certain pack of them, right? And then you look at the right side, and not that much different, because you've got Lauren Boebert over here, you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, you've got Matt Gaetz that's sitting over here as well. And I'm just like, I mean, it again, term limits cuts all this shit out, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's talking about how much money they made, when they've been in there for 4 years. No one's talking about it. right? At that point, you're talking about it now because they've been in there for so long, and they just keep getting installed over and over and over again, and they come out making millions, and yet don't make a single decision that is truly what the people want.
Yeah.
I mean, and that falls on both sides, right? Don't get me wrong. I mean, that happens on the Republican side as well, and the Democrat side. But I mean, but if you look at it, even lately, the rhinos have been more exposed now than what they have ever been, right? Which is interesting,
Yeah.
and
What Matt Gates
that
just did.
that gets me into all different types of topics, and even the whole QAnon stuff, right? It's interesting to listen to people talk about it, and I like
Mhm.
just kind of hearing all these sides of it. But I will tell you what that movement, if that's what you want to call it, what that movement did was have people start researching, have people get on the internet and start finding a lot of this stuff out. I mean, I mean, you know who Liz Crokin is?
I don't believe so, actually. No.
So have you heard the whole conspiracy theory of Pizzagate? Right?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
So she was one of the main ones that really brought all of that up. And I mean, and all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, right? This was years ago that all of this started coming up, and they're like, she's crazy, all this. And then all of a sudden now, a lot of people know about Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of people
Mhm.
are wondering, why can't we see this black book, right? Why not? Because there's too many of their names, that are on it. But my point of it is that all of that started with that conspiracy theory, and then look where we are. But that movement itself, that QAnon movement, is just interesting because it did open up a lot of people's eyes to go, what we're being told is not the truth. Now, whether you believe in anything else or not, it still opened up a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, that's what I like about, way back in the day. This is why I give Trump a lot of credit for is just he got my generation, unfortunately I'm part of Gen Z. He got my generation into politics. Back
Yeah.
in high school, everyone once Trump, announced that he was running for president, everyone started talking about it. I mean, that every time I went to school, that was a topic, of the day, right? So all of a sudden that's what got me into politics. If Trump never ran for office, who knows where I'd be right now? I'd probably, have a 9 to 5 job sitting doing
I didn't
whatever.
even
But
I didn't even think about politics, man. Like, when I was your age, when I was in college, I didn't care about that stuff, man. Like
exactly.
nobody, like nobody cared. Like you'd have a debate that they'd go back and forth and all that stuff. You'd hear about it, but that generation, my generation, nobody cared about that. And then it was Trump, right? It finally got to that boiling point where if and maybe I mean, we're different ages here, so maybe it's a little bit different for you, but for me and the people that were around my age, around that 2015 time when Trump was announcing that he was running, they were like, well, why are you voting for him? Many people had the same answer, and it was, well, he's a businessman. Like
Simple as
that's
that.
why we want him in there. We're tired of all the other BS that's running around here, and so it makes sense. Let's get a businessman in there. To me, it still makes sense, and that's why I'm going to lean that way, anyways. So
And look at the
um,
results. Scoreboard, right? It just you gotta look at the
that
result.
again,
It's simple as that.
yeah, that right there again, man, is something that I just don't understand. If you listen to a lot of people that are on the left, you would think that Trump was actually the worst president in the history that we have ever had, point blank, period, right? And I'm thinking Abraham Accord. I'm thinking, my 401k looked amazing. Gas was
Oh my
cheap,
gosh.
prices were down. You've got what, 2 to 3% on mortgages at that time. Like, what was, I mean, we were living a good life. Like, we were doing pretty good, you know and to hear when people say, and I know you've heard this, right? Well, the president doesn't control that. Biden's not responsible for gas prices, and Biden's not responsible for all of that. Now, directly, is he responsible for a gas price? Like, does he flip a switch? No, he doesn't. is his actions, is the fact that he is a weak president, is the fact that he, cut off some of the pipelines have maybe something a little bit to do with it? Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, the entire economy rides on what he's been doing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I debate that all the time, stuff like this. It's like, look, we can debate this forever. You just, if you, then why is it that, it's simple, something as simple as the employment rate under Trump, right? If you look at the employment rate under Trump, there was records, right? For blacks, Asians, people at a high school diploma, veterans, women in like 70 years or something. It was just, it was 3.5% the unemployment rate under Trump. Okay. The Congressional Budget Office and the Federal Reserve mispredicted it under Trump. Okay, he did way better than they predicted. It was somewhere in the 4% range, and that 1% difference is huge. So people were not expecting the economy to do so well under the Trump administration, but it
yep,
did. Okay, and we can debate about it all day, but to me, it's so crystal clear because right when Biden took office, and obviously, of course, that COVID had to happen and kind of make it a little iffy and a little fuzzy, and to make it
yep,
crystal clear for people that, oh, this is why Biden's doing so bad and this and that, but. No, no. I think if Trump got reelected, we'd be at a much better place right now. So at least just get
yep.
a Republican in there. You're killing me with these Democrats, man.
Now I will tell you though. I mean, with Trump getting, looking at, there's a high probability that he's going to be reelected if there's no meddling, and the election is on the up and up. It looks like he's sitting in a good spot. The one thing that these last 4 years has done has exposed a lot of the dirty laundry that is in Washington as well, right? It's
Yeah.
exposed a lot of rhinos. It's exposed a lot of people. I mean, you look at the Obama's name was synonymous with no issues, right? Like there was no corruption. There was nothing there. And now it's not looking like that's the case. And
Hmm.
so a part of me does believe, I don't want to say this master plan that Trump had, right? I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is that it sure seems like if we come out of this on the other end, which I think we will, so much has been exposed and have woken people up that, that's kind of what we've needed in essence,
Hmm.
you know. Now, if all of a sudden Biden ends up getting, double the amount of votes that he got the last time, and all of a sudden there's like 400 million people voting for Biden, and he wins again, then Lord help us, Um, but it's definitely been an interesting 3 to 4 years, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's almost like I hate to say it. It was just kind of um just a wake up call for people. We had to go so low for people to realize it. But we're here now. We're just gonna have to hopefully enough people realize that it's probably Biden. But now we got a good speaker, who has a good voting record. So maybe
Right.
he'll kind of change things around. I got some high hopes for him. So I'm excited. Actually, I'm gonna make sure uh, I keep informed on what Johnson does. So,
Yeah.
but I want to get back to kind of how you TikTok kind of and or content creation and
Yeah.
kind of what you your values and how they changed over time. So when you started doing more conservative TikTok, did you see any big improvements? People like reaching out to you that like DM saying like, "Wow, I wish someone would say this."
Yeah, so I mean, I got a lot of on both sides of it, right? I got the hate, I got the death threats, I got like just stupid stuff, right? But then I got the whole, hey, we really appreciate, or I really appreciate what you're doing. I mean, getting the word out, or finally have somebody to listen to, and I don't have to go searching all over the internet for it, and there were a lot of people that were grateful. I lost, and this is interesting too, is that the amount of followers that I did lose. I mean, I think I sit right now at around that 250 mark, 250,000. But I have no doubt that I lost probably 30,000 as soon as I took a stand and went to one side, right? They couldn't no longer follow me. And I find that to be very interesting. And so that's why I've always tried to at least be able to have conversations with people, even if they didn't agree. I don't like these debates, to be honest with you. I like just conversations because in a debate, there has to be a winner and a loser in a debate, right? That's what a debate is. In a conversation, you're actually listening to the other person and you're not so focused on that next point. And in a debate, I feel that you're always, ready to fire at that next point so that you're not really listening. And so, I just, it was really interesting to me how many people just gave up and was like, yeah, I'm not following you because now all of a sudden you're, a Republican. And it's like, I'm the same person that I was, 100,000 followers ago, but because I was talking about relationships and I was talking about, divorce and things like that, you were cool with that. But as soon as I made a choice politically, you were like, nah, I can't listen to you. I don't like you now.
Yeah.
Like that to me, that's a bigger issue, right? And but it also opened my eyes too. I mean, because when I switched over, I was still single at the time. I was dating, and that's really interesting, man. Is when the girl is all of a sudden like, "Yeah, I'm not interested," because they found out that on TikTok you are conservative, and I'm like, "That's cool," because your last few text messages before all this, you were all into it, right? Like you were ready to, settle down, and now all of a sudden you're not. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's been a pretty wild journey. I think your mom was a fan of me before you were. So
Oh man, that was what. So if you guys don't know, Justin had a lot more followers. Before I even started posting political stuff, Justin was extremely already big on TikTok. Okay. And my mother would always send me videos of Justin, like his political videos, and be like, this guy's the best. I love what this guy does. You should follow him, this and that.
that's funny.
And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, like Justin would make great points. I'm like, man, this guy knows his stuff. So I would follow him. And then next thing you know, I started posting my own political stuff, my own videos on Omegle. And then one blew up. And then I started blowing up. And then all of a sudden, Justin followed me back. So we like DM back and forth. And we started doing collaborations and stuff. And it was like the coolest
Yeah,
experience. Like, yo, mom, look at this is Justin. And
yeah.
so that was cool. That was very cool. But yeah,
And, that, and that's
my
how
mom
and
loved
that's how we got to Vegas, with
it.
that huge TikTok meetup that it was. And I mean, I just one of us, either you reached out or I reached out, I can't remember, but we're like, hey, you going to Vegas? Yep. All right, here, cool. Here's where we're staying. Let's meet up. And kind of, the rest was history. But I remember you telling me about that, and you're like, yeah, my mom was like following you, and I was like, you know what? I think your mom and I are probably the same age, so that's kind of funny in itself. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, it was definitely interesting. Actually, you brought up Las Vegas because I had no idea there's like a TikTok event. It felt weird,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it felt weird because they had like your thing on your chat. Everyone would ask
So,
me when I was there.
yeah.
The whole thing was so poorly set up too that there
Oh
was a
God, it was
oh
awful.
man, they
It was
had
so bad.
they had what were they called? They had like 1,200 lanyards, right? And
Yeah,
so all of a sudden, they gave out 1,200 lanyards, and then we get to the room, and apparently only 800 people can fit in the room. So,
yeah,
so that means that what? Quick math, real quick. So that means that 400 people didn't get to go in.
yeah.
So there was just a massive pack. So it was so packed outside, no one was able to get in, and we got there late. I think you might have gotten in. I
Yeah,
didn't.
so
I
we
wasn't
got
there.
there a little bit earlier than I think what you did, and so we got to go up. It was just in a weird location too. I mean, now I think it's been what a couple years, so they've done this now at least two more times, and from what I've seen, they've kind of ironed out a lot
Yeah.
of it. But that first one though, I mean, where we were, the hotel and the casino that we had to go into, there was like two elevators, right? That was it. And there was just this long line of people waiting, hundreds of people waiting to get in. And then you took the elevator, you went all the way up to the top, and it was just like this open area. So I get up there. It doesn't look like it's very full. I mean, there's people up there, but it doesn't look like it's very full. Next thing I know, they're not letting anybody else in. And I knew there were hundreds of people behind me in line, and I'm like, oh my God, and they had gotten to capacity. And so, yeah, it just wasn't a great experience. I mean, it was interesting running into people. I had a couple people come up to me and they're like, oh, you're just Justin, right? And then I'm just
Really?
like,
That's
yeah, I mean,
awesome.
it was weird. I've only been recognized a handful of times, like out in public, and that was odd itself. I was at the mall, and I had a couple come up to me, a married couple come up to me, and they were like, "I'm sorry, but are you Justin?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "We've been following you forever." Oh my God, she's like, "Honey, come
That's
here,"
awesome.
and so he comes over, we take a picture or whatnot. That was interesting. So I'm like, I'm just a regular person, I just
Yeah, it's
decided to
weird.
put my
Yeah.
name out there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
fun, but then like that one time, the first time someone recognized me was like on Omegle, which doesn't
yeah,
really count, but it just kind of threw me back. All of a sudden, I was like recording a video, and then this one kid, I'll never forget. I still have the video. I thankfully recorded it, and he was just like he threw himself back in his chair. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you're the guy from TikTok." I'm like, "You serious?" I'm like, "You serious?" He's like, dude, this is so awesome. It's like, can I get a picture? Can I get a picture? Oh no, there's like a couple it was
yeah.
so awesome. It was so awesome, but it definitely, makes you feel like you're doing something right, when you see people really enjoy your content. So yeah, but that's awesome. That's good that you've been recognized. I think I've been recognized like twice in person. I've had a couple people come up to me. I had one guy take a picture with me, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
it's definitely an interesting feeling, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's yeah, I don't know. And I can't say that I loved it. I can't say that I hated it, but at the same time, like it was different, and it made me wonder what it must be like for these big celebrities. Your Justin Bieber, your LeBron
I can
James, and
imagine.
yeah, and people like that. I mean, how you can't even go out in public without being recognized. So it just interesting.
Yeah. All right. So I got a question for you. All right. So
Sure.
if you like, let's say someone's listening right now and they're kind of lost politically, right? They don't know where they stand. They're like, okay, I see all this stuff coming out about Trump. His attorneys. They're pleading guilty, this and that, and but Biden, he kind of sucks, right? Like I see all him. He can't even say a full sentence without stuttering or without getting lost in thought. What do I do? What would I do?
And it's a great question. Honestly, I think first, the very first thing you can do, you can't do enough research, right? And that is a very broad term in itself because you tell somebody to research and they're like, okay, that's cool, but where do I begin, right? Like, what do I do? And a lot of that is your even on TikTok, man. I mean, people like us that are, getting content out there. That's one source. You can't be so confined and boxed into, one source or not. But Telegram has a ton of resources on there too. I mean, both right and left. It is hard to Google things nowadays because you are gonna. So much of it has been censored as well. But really doing the research on it, but also critically thinking too. I mean, so for me, everybody talks about what was that red pill moment, right?
Hmm.
And I think, I shared earlier about not really getting into politics before 2016. For me, that red pill moment was really with Trump, and I guess the whole story with Trump. Because what's interesting to me is that this is a man that was well respected, or it seemed, anyways, right? He was well respected. The black community loved him. Black celebrities loved him. Oprah loved him. Everybody loved him. Everybody's wanting to do an interview with him, right? The moment he decides to start running, now they hate him. That just didn't that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? Why all of a sudden are you that hated? No one has ever been in that presidential role, and people have just gone after them left and right. You know, I think you also have to decide: do you believe what the media is telling you or not? Some people apparently still believe it. They'll sit there and watch your Fox News and CNN and all that. If you decide that you do not believe them, then you have to think critically in the fact that what you're hearing in could what's happening in Israel and Palestine with Hamas and all that, is that really what's happening? Like you have to discern
There's
so
so
much
much.
information,
Yeah,
right?
there's so much
And
misinformation.
yeah, and for me, I don't believe a damn word that the media is saying at all. I don't believe it at all because you've been lied to. It's like that toxic relationship and the girl continues to lie to you and lie to you. I mean, you love her, but she lies to you and lies to you. Well, you've got a choice. Do you believe the next time, or do you end up walking away, right? And in this, it's like I walked away, and I'm like, no, I don't believe anything that the media says, anymore. Um, I would never tell somebody this is who you need to go and believe in, right? Like you need to go and vote for them. No, I mean, I'm going to tell you, you need to go and do your own research, man. And it's interesting that you asked me that question because I have a 17-year-old. She will be 18 by the time the next election rolls around, right? She turns 18 in August. She gets to vote. So we've spent a lot of time just kind of talking. Her mom is more on the left, voted for Obama twice and all of that, and obviously we all know where I stand, and so it's just about having that open lines of communication. Where again, it's not a debate, but it's open lines of communication. And the thing that I like about being able to be face to face with somebody is that we can sit down at a computer together and start looking up these resources as well, right? The thing about TikTok is you can't do that. You can't even share your screen, while you're looking on the internet and to provide these resources. So it makes it really difficult. So for anybody that is, questioning where they stand, it just comes down to first off the research, second logical thinking, and two, what do you believe in, right? I mean, do you like where you're at right now? Like, are you good? I mean, what stage of life are you in, right? Like that has a lot to do with it. You're somebody that's 25 to 35, 40, right? You could be looking at trying to buy your first home. Right now is not a great time to buy your first home, but in 2016 to 2020, it was a damn good time to buy a home. You're looking at 2 to 3% interest rates, right? It was pretty good. Are you somebody that has a 401k, right? What did your 401k look like 2016 to 2020? I know what mine looked like, so I guarantee yours look pretty damn good too, right? What does it look like now? Not as great, So it's like those types of things is, and we can talk all day. Well, Trump put them in cages. Well, no, Obama put them in cages first, right? Like we can talk about all that all day long, but to me, it just comes down to where are you at in life right now, and what was it? Was it better under Trump, or was it better under the current regime that we've got right now? How many times did you worry about being censored before 2020 in
Yeah.
anything?
I
Nothing.
TikTok was a free for all at that point.
Yeah, yeah, you didn't have to worry about anything at all. And now what is created is the Second Amendment like it just doesn't exist at all. It's this misinformation, right? Which it's BS because we find out 6 months down the road we were right the entire time. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole masks thing or the whole vaccine thing as well. You know what I mean? I mean, we could talk about that for days.
Yeah.
But
Just
you
if you
know,
don't,
so,
that's a great point. It's just there's so much information has been proven wrong, that they were
yeah.
so passionate about, adamant about, and I don't know if that doesn't make you question, like, what else is the government really passionate about saying, like, oh, you have to do this, that they're actually wrong about. I like the what you said earlier, the 24-hour rule. Sometimes you might even have to do a week rule,
Yeah,
like
you got
what
to,
else?
yeah, you'll have to go a lot longer than that. I mean,
Yeah.
you may have to go 30 years or 40 or 50 years. Aliens, let's talk aliens for a second, right? How many conspiracy theorists were out there talking about, there's aliens, there's aliens. These people were crazy. Now all of a sudden the government's like, there may be aliens.
And no
Wait a
one
minute.
cared though. That was the funny part.
I know, right? Everyone's like, it's 2023. That's on the bingo list here. Sounds good,
I live in
right? I
San
mean,
Francisco, I see like
yeah.
aliens are the least weird thing that's going on in my life right now.
Right. Or the JFK assassination, right?
Yeah.
I mean they know FBI was involved. People have said that for years, and they were called conspiracy theorists. And now all of a sudden, well, yeah, it's true, but I mean, like,
It's wild.
okay, what is going to be said 40 years? What are we going to learn 40 years from now? Like that's going to be the insane thing that's going to piss people off too. Think about the
Yeah.
people that have died because they were forced, essentially forced to get the vaccine, right? They
Mhm.
didn't want it. We have no idea. And look, I'm not saying it's good, it's bad, or whatever. I mean, I've got my own feelings on it, obviously, but for the sake of this, I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is that logically speaking, we do not know what's going to happen in 20 years resulting from this vaccine. It's the number one reason why I decided and chose for my kids not to get it, right?
Yeah.
Because we have no idea. So
Yeah.
hope
No,
that answers the question.
that answers it perfectly. I just and also, I asked Evelyn, she was my first guest, and she talked about how she was a leftist for a good chunk of her life, and then her parents were more conservative. And I thought this she answered this pretty interesting way, so I'm curious what your answer is. So now you have a kid, 17 years old, your daughter. Is she more conservative? She left. How have you kind of, because there's so much misinformation going around, the schooling system's very biased. How have you kind of kept her away from that or made her like kind of question everything? How's that? How would you help parents? What would you give advice?
Yeah, man,
What advice would you give?
that's a really good question. And it's a loaded question too, right? Because everybody's in such a different dynamic and different different states have a lot to do with it, right? I mean, I'm lucky enough to be living in a red state, so I think I have a leg up in
Mm.
some instances because there's some schools right now in certain states that I mean it's a lot worse than what my kid's school is. Would I say I can't really I don't think it would be fair to say 17, 18, 20. I would even go up to 25. We all know that the what is it, the frontal cortex of the brain isn't even fully developed until the age of 25,
Yeah.
right? So to say somebody is conservative or whatnot, how do you really know, right? I mean, like you haven't really lived that much of the life, I mean, but there's a lot to figure out too. But what I would say to that is we just have open conversations about what we see is going on. She knows that I do not believe in the news whatsoever, and I lay out why I don't believe the news, right? And we just talk about some of our basic beliefs and a lot of our basic beliefs are that conservative belief, right? I mean, for us, I mean, and her too. It's like, okay, what you're 17 years old. We can talk about this. What do you think about abortion, right? Let's talk about it. Now, is she going to be able to articulate what maybe you and I could about it? No, but that's due to her age, right? But she can say, well, I just don't think it's right, like killing a child like that, right? Okay, cool. Now we're getting somewhere. All right. So you don't like that. Okay. What do you think about the what is the Second Amendment? And we talk about the Second Amendment, and educating her on that and whatnot. And she knows that, I carry, and, I've got guns and things. And she's like, well, you do that so you can protect us. Right. And, and everybody should be able to like protect their okay, cool. So let's talk about that a little bit. And so, that's where we have those conversations. And she's like, so what's the difference between Democrat and Republican? So then we start kind of, what they kind of believe in, what Republicans kind of believe in, type of deal, and say, hey, this is where, you align. I'm not telling her, in the next year, when you go to vote, you need to go vote for Trump. I
Yeah.
just said, you're not welcome at my home anymore if you vote for Biden. That's it. So no.
No.
But yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I mean, yeah, she's going to go more conservative. But it's just kind of how, we've also raised her too. So
Okay, that's interesting. So you don't like kind of obviously you don't like force it hurt your beliefs on your child. You kind of ask her questions. You just
yeah,
do you bring it up? Do you bring up the conversations like about the Second Amendment, or does she
no.
bring it up?
So, well, a lot of it was the real start to it was in school, or well, her school. And I would ask, hey, do you hear anything about the pronouns, right? And she's like, oh my gosh, Dad, it's so annoying to sit here and talk about, like, and we'd go into and we'd start talking about it, right? And I'd ask her questions. How do you feel about that? Like, what do you think? And so we'd go into that, and I'd ask her, do your teachers, fly the LGBTQ flag in there and whatnot? And I don't think that ever came up at all, but I'd ask her questions. That's kind of how that came up. And now, I mean, she's aware enough to know that what's going on in Israel. She may not know a lot because they don't talk about that at school, right? They're talking about other things. But it's still important for me, anyways, to ask those questions, because now, again, if it was up to me, I would agree with probably pushing out the voting age a little bit.
Me too.
Um, because again, if it is proven that your brain is not fully developed until the age of 25, then I don't think you have the right capacity there to say, okay, well, you get to choose who the president of the United States is. Um, because at that point, why not 17? Why not 16? You know what I mean? Like, what I mean,
It's
what does it
arbitrary.
matter?
I wouldn't
Yeah.
even be mad if they moved it up to 30 years old. Like I really wouldn't be that upset.
Or take a civics test.
Yeah, take statistics.
I mean, that's not reality. Like, that's never going to happen. But I mean,
1% of the population would be able to vote after that.
right,
Yeah.
right. No, it's
So
yeah. I mean, it's conversational, right? And I don't. I do have friends that are like, no, my kid is definitely voting this way or the other. That's cool. Parenting is not easy, man. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done, ever had to go through. And what I've learned is that it's a lot more. It's a lot easier. It's never easy, but it's a lot easier when you're asking the questions, right?
mhm.
I treat it a lot like, so what I do is for, my career, I run a training and development uh, department for a pretty big finance company. And so, we go through a lot of this stuff. I train people on, how to interact with customers, how to interact with their staff, and things like that. And it's not a lot different, interacting with my child, who's 17, who's almost an adult, right? And it's the same concept for me anyway, asking the questions, and which leads to other questions, and getting her to open up and ask questions. Because I feel like if you just start telling people all of this, what happens in a debate, right? You start telling me all this, I'm not listening to you. We cannot have a fully functioning conversation if one side is not listening. You have to actively be engaged and actively listen to be able to get anywhere. And so, and that's what I try to do. But
Yeah.
uh, that's what I wish more of these conversations would be. And that's why I hate, like, so many times I get on TikTok and I'm scrolling and it's like debate, debate. like over just the some of the dumbest stuff. I mean, and I shouldn't say dumb. I mean, because it is talking about, you know, the election,
Important issues, yeah.
abortion, and then things like that. But you can tell that people are not willing to listen. You never, at the end of those conversations, you always see it in the chat, right? Host W, host L, you know, they
Right.
lost, whatever. There is no clear cut winner or loser. You guys just argued both your points. You got a couple minutes out of the way of your day and you moved on. I
That's
mean,
what I
nothing
say.
was solved.
Yeah, that's what I always, I always say that when it comes to these debates, even though you won the debate, you can still be wrong. Just that the other
Yeah,
person didn't have enough information to, maybe substantiate their point better, right? So
right.
that's the problem with these debates on TikTok is that they're debates, and once they hear that debate word, they say, "Oh, now this is not a productive conversation. This is a game. This is a you versus
Yeah,
me scenario where I want
yeah,
to beat you somehow." And, you could bring up good points, but that doesn't matter. I have to somehow think of a way to counter those points. So they're not thinking about, oh, maybe he's got a good point. Maybe I should look into that or something. That never happens. It's always, how do I somehow not look like a fool in front of my audience, right? Because that's another thing is a lot of these debaters now, they'll look at the comments and they'll refer to the comments like, "Oh, look at all
yeah,
the people saying LU." Like, "Damn, oh, that's, that sucks for you." Stuff like that where clearly it's a game to them. They're not trying to actually be productive and change people's minds. And, I did that before. I used to do a lot of debates on TikTok, and every now and then I'll do one cuz I find them a little fun sometimes.
yeah.
It can
Because
definitely
it's a
affect your
game,
mental health. Yeah, it is a
right?
game. It's fun,
It's a
right?
game. That's why
It's a little
it's
ego
fun,
boost.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I would do that every now and then, and but the times when I actually had productive conversations is when I reached out to these, for example, pro-choicers. Maybe I'll DM them on Instagram or something way back in the day, or they followed me, so I followed them back, and I would say, "Hey, would you mind if we went on a phone call or something in private and talked about this issue? Because it's an important issue to me, and I think you seem like an open-minded person." I obviously wouldn't say this to someone that is clearly closed-minded and has bad intentions. So I would talk to them, and next thing you know, I was changing way more minds than when I would debate on TikTok, because
right,
there's too much pressure. They don't want to look like a fool in front of their audience, right? They don't want to look like a fool in front of a couple hundred people viewing or even a couple thousand people, because if they do, they're going to feel bad about it. They're going to think about it. It's not a fun experience. I've been on the other end where I looked like a fool in front of a ton of people. It's not fun. So that's
yep,
why just if it's a one-on-one conversation, and if you ever want to change someone's mind, don't do it in public. Don't do it in front of an audience, maybe their family's around or friends. Don't do that. Do a one-on-one conversation, pretty private, and just like you said, just simply ask them questions like, why is that? And make sure you know your information. Make sure you've done your due diligence. You've done your research and you know your points, because that's when you're going to change people's minds. You're not going to change people's minds if you just yell at them, say like, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're this, calling them all these ad hominems. That's not going to work. So that's where I at least found it to be more productive, is the one-on-ones, for me at
yeah.
least.
And look, if how many times have you been in these conversations where somebody was willing to turn the chat off? You can turn the chat off, but
Yeah.
nobody ever does, right?
No.
Like they don't turn it off. I mean, that would be the number one thing that I would do if I wanted to have a true conversation, and at least do it on TikTok, because again, it is for views too. Like let's just get that straight. I mean, people, the more people you have in there, the better it is, right? We get
Yeah.
that, but turn the chat off. And if they want to stay in there, that's fine. But the trolls are going to leave anyway because they don't want to watch you anyway. But you would then be able to have a good conversation, back and forth. And right now, our country as a whole doesn't know how to have a conversation like that to begin with. So why would any of the Americans know how to? Because our government won't emulate that, right? I mean,
Great
that's a
point.
problem in itself. I mean, it is extremely divided, and I'm not going to get into, oh well, that's Biden's fault or that's Trump's fault. I think it's the entire government. Both sides have played a role into this.
Mhm.
Now, I will say that Trump has helped unify the country more than in my lifetime, probably any president besides maybe Reagan or somebody like that. But it's just right now, and we talked about this before we came on air here, is it's at a really interesting time right now in the country, right? You're probably not going to change a lot of minds. They're getting even more set in their ways, and and so that's why again, I'm just more of that. Let's just have a conversation. Like I can't. I'm not here to try to change your mind. I just want to know your view. Like I just want to know what makes you think, because I think I'm a logical person, and I can't understand, why anyone wouldn't want to be behind Trump. You know, so that's why I like having those conversations. But
Yeah.
it's an interesting time.
Yeah, but all right. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. But once again, Justin, I appreciate you coming on. If you want to shout yourself out on any of your socials, go for it.
Hey, it's just Justin JC. You can find me on all of the social media links. Every now and again, I'll go live and do a couple podcasts, but that's what it is. Just continue doing your research, folks.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But all right, guys. Well, that's it for episode 3 of Right Minds, Right Times, and have a good one.